I'd like to welcome everybody to our annual meeting of the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. I'm Tricia Crowley, and I'm currently the president of the League. We traditionally have speakers at our annual meeting, and that's the case tonight. Because we do have a business meeting after this, I'm going to keep the time pretty tight. We're scheduled to have our speakers for an hour, and that's pretty much what it's going to be. We're going to have Chief Connolly and Chief Cobb each speak for 20 minutes, and then we'll have 20 minutes of questions. I have a microphone that I'll bring around so that the people can ask questions. Urbana Public Television is taping this for broadcast at a later time, so it's important that we get your questions on the microphone so that it can be presented to the TV audience. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Safety and security in everyday life is essential to life in our communities. It's a basic service we expect our government to provide. In both Champaign and Urbana, issues involving police enforcement have been prominent in the last few years. And the issues show how it is the most vulnerable of our citizens who are most impacted. In Urbana, I know there have been questions of aggressive panhandling and impacts on seniors and other citizens. And in Champaign, police-youth interactions, particularly with African-American youths, have been the major issue. Tonight, the police chiefs of Champaign and Urbana will speak to us about community policing in their communities and how they implement that. And I'm going to introduce both of them now, but we'll have them each come and speak separately at first and then for questions. Pat Connolly has been an officer with the Urbana Police Department since 1988. He was appointed assistant chief in 2006 and chief in 2010. His wide variety of police experience and his extensive knowledge of Urbana no doubt plays into his views of community policing. Anthony Cobb was born and raised in the Champaign-Urbana community and was a police officer in Urbana for almost 20 years, including being the first community policing officer in that community. Continuing a long tradition of hiring the best of Urbana employees, Champaign has just recently appointed Anthony as police chief in Champaign. Several well-known incidents, including the death of Kwana Carrington, have created tension between the youth and the police department, and that will be among Chief Cobb's immediate and urgent problems, and he can tell us tonight some of his proposed actions in that area. With that, I'd like to start with Chief Connolly. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, Trish, and everybody else involved in the League of Women Voters for asking both Anthony and myself to come this evening to speak to you. Secondly, and just as important, I want to thank Anthony Cobb. And the reason for that is earlier today, Anthony and I had a number of different meetings. And during that, I grabbed a few minutes and I said, are we going to dress in dress uniforms tonight, or are we going to dress in suits? And fortunately for me, Anthony decided, or at least he suggested, that we wear suits, and I immediately jumped on the bandwagon and agreed. And I'll tell you why. Quick story, 20 plus years ago, I was, as a young police officer, saying, if I was ever king for a day, who would have guessed 20 years later I became the chief of police for the city of Urbana, but if I were ever king for a day, I think one of the best and most innovative ways of getting to meet the community is to go to a different church each Sunday and meet the people in that congregation. And lo and behold, last year the mayor appointed me as the police chief, and I held true to that commitment from 20 years past. So I did a bit of research, and I would have never in a million years guessed that in the city of Urbana there are 52 churches. 52. Now, what I would do each day, now I've had some problems at home with some healthcare issues with my dad up in Milwaukee and whatnot, so I haven't been able to go religiously every weekend, no pun intended. But I would put on my dress uniform, and each week I would go to a different church. And invariably I was greeted initially with, what's wrong? So already we have a problem in our community with the police and the community interacting. And I would say, absolutely nothing is wrong. Here's who I am, and here's what I'm doing, and here's why I'm doing it. And then everybody relaxes and they feel fantastic. And then I would go to the service, and invariably, and I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but invariably, the reverend involved or the priest of that particular church ultimately gets my business card, and then he introduces me. And so far, the record is pretty strong. It's about 77% of the time out of the 47 churches that I've attended so far, they would introduce me as, and I would like to introduce Pat Connolly, the Urbana Fire Chief. I would like to, Reverend Thomas, right over there from Mount Olive, he can attest to it. So, the great news is we don't have to wear that silly getup that invariably I will be identified as the fire chief anyhow, so I want to thank Anthony for allowing me to come in this getup. So as I understand it, what we're going to do is I'm going to share a little bit about the concept of community policing within the city of Urbana since I started as the chief, and then Anthony's going to share some information about the direction Champaign's going to take it, and then we're going to open it up to a lot of different questions. And I want to clarify this up front, and because I'm sure invariably one of you are going to ask, what do you think about, or how has it been since Anthony's departed? This tonight is exactly the reason why our loss was our gain in Urbana. For years, I can tell you that there has been just a difference in philosophy with respect to working together as a community. There was a problem in Champaign, and Champaign handled that problem. Nobody else got involved. If there was a problem in Urbana, nobody else got involved in the law enforcement community. And that, I think, is a huge mistake, and it's something that we need to strive to break that barrier. And fortunately, with Anthony's philosophy, it's already been proven time and time again in the short time that he's been here, but I'm so excited that finally we can work together as a police community and address community issues together. And that's so important that we do it, because two things I say in the community policing arena. One is there's virtually no way that we, the police, can solve all the problems. We have to have the help of the public. We have to engage with the community. We have to work with you to identify problems and then work at them together to solve them. Or we're going to keep chasing calls for service, or the violent crime continues to go up and we never get any final solution to any of the problems. So that is probably the most important message that I'm going to carry tonight, is that it's virtually impossible for us to do it by ourselves. And that's why I'm so excited tonight to talk about community policing, because together I can share some of the initiatives that we've started, but most importantly, I can share the word that we're not done. We haven't attained our goal. We got to continually strive for it, and that we need to work together in order to be able to do that. All right, so first I need to paint a picture, I guess, initially of a little bit about our police department so you have a better understanding, because oftentimes people are absolutely shocked when they hear that there are 5 Urbana police officers on the street and we had a shooting, and now you guys are calling about a critical event in Urbana and you're wondering why it's taking so long for the police to get there. So let me first just lay the foundation and tell you why it's important that we work together, and the police can't do it by ourselves. We have 71 total employees, 55 of which are sworn police officers. It's broken myself, I'm the chief. Anthony was the assistant chief. Now Sylvia Morgan is the assistant chief of police. And then we have 3 lieutenants, and the 5 of us comprise the leadership team of the police department. Initially, we had Bryant Seraphin is the lieutenant in charge of our criminal investigation section, our detectives, and we have 6 detectives that handle both juvenile and adult crimes. And historically, we had 1 lieutenant who was in charge of all of the patrol division, with 10 sergeants and 31 police officers. And for any former military folks in here, the span of control was outrageous. Virtually impossible to be able to do that. So last year, we changed that format a lot so that we could better serve the community. And what we did was split it into a lieutenant in charge of the North District and a lieutenant in charge of the South District. So Rich Searles is the lieutenant from Main Street North, is responsible for addressing the needs in the community on the north side of the city, and Bob Fitzgerald is the lieutenant who is in charge of the south side. So that's kind of this, I think you need, just so you can visualize how the police department is structured, so that when we start talking about the programs, you have a better understanding. Also, historically, what we did was had police officers when police respond for the evening to work in a geographic area, it's called a beat, also called a zone. So if I refer to the different zones or beats, we're talking about the geographic location in which that police car is working that evening. so that we didn't bore the officer. In years past, we had police officers rotate their beats on a daily basis. The problem that we saw with that was we needed police officers to work the same beat assignments so that they could get to meet the people in their neighborhoods, so that they could better understand the cars that should and should not be in that neighborhood, and that they could get out and get to meet the people there. And going to a different beat assignment each night just wasn't working. So we changed that format so that we had fixed beat assignments. And we did that because of our FOP contract. We have 6-month sign-up rotations. So by seniority, officers would sign a geographic beat where they would work, but now we have them on a fixed beat assignment so that they work during that 6 months. And the good news is, as we get more buy-in, believe me, folks, the police culture is probably one of the toughest cultures in the world to change. Everything is tradition. It's like the military. It's the way we always did it. Therefore, that's the way we're going to continue to do it. Unfortunately, that doesn't work in this day and age. So we need creative, innovative ideas to try to interact with the community and get people, police especially, more involved in the community. So we started programs like police bike programs, get them out of squad cars and riding bicycles during appropriate weather. Get them out and walking and meeting and greeting in the community. Most importantly, what we started last year, and actually I say we, quite honestly, all the credit goes to Bob Fitzgerald, from the South District Commander, who started a really recreating the whole concept of neighborhood watch. Now, I know it's got some bad connotations, especially because of Florida, but I'm not talking about vigilantism. I'm talking about the police and the community actually working together and trying to identify problems in their geographic location and then working on solutions to solve those problems. So Bob Fitzgerald, we had a rather dormant neighborhood watch committee. Actually, we had 2 in the city, and they weren't very involved. Bob kind of rekindled that, actually put a great deal of effort into reaching out to the people in the community. And I can tell you that right now we have 18 active neighborhood watch groups, and some of them are incredibly large. In fact, at one of the meetings I was at on South Philo Road in one of the churches, we actually had 73 people from one neighborhood attend the function. And it was, if any of you recall, we had a horribly tragic, thank God it didn't end up in the death, but we had a horribly serious situation about a year and a half ago involving a 78-year-old woman. Someone came, knocked on the door, asked if someone was present. Unfortunately, she opened the door for him just to tell him, no, he doesn't live here. He forced entry. He tried to rob her. He locked her in a closet, tied her up, left her for dead. And but for the grace of God, an astute postal carrier noticed that the door was cracked and noticed that there was some letters that were not being collected. He called the police. We went there. We searched the whole house and didn't find her. Fortunately, one of our officers stopped, listened, heard some moaning. We were able to move some furniture, and we found a woman who had been barricaded in a closet for 3 days. So I shared that story with these 70 folks that attended this meeting and said, you know, this is why it's so important that we get together as a community and that we share these types of tragedies so that we can all learn from them. And as I'm sharing all of this, all these people are looking right up at the front row. And finally, that's why I wear a gold badge, you know, the detective in me realizes the woman who was locked in that closet was sitting in the front row. Now that's a brave gal, isn't it? But I mean, that's the kind of effort that we strive for and try to work for so that we can work together as a community rather than just saying the police have to deal with this problem and I don't want to get involved. So that's really, unfortunately, sad that oftentimes that's the attitude in our community, but we're trying to break that. The other thing we're doing, and I noticed Teresa Michelson, who's a big supporter and involved in the SUNA, the Southeast Urbana Neighborhood Association, but she's really involved in those regional grassroots efforts that are saying we have a problem on this particular street and we have a problem in this geographic boundary, but we can't solve the problem just with the police, so we need to get more people involved. So the city, community development folks and our legal folks and our public works folks sit down, talk about different strategies that we have to identify problem properties. SUNA, WUNA, UCAP, the northwest part of the city. These are all organizations that were also attending meetings regularly. In fact, we have a SUNA meeting coming up. So we attend these meetings so that we can engage with the community so that we can better do our job and better serve the people in our community. So I keep emphasizing that, and I think it's really important that people understand when we try to initiate these types of projects, oftentimes people say, well, we need statistical stuff. I'm going to refer you to, actually we have two different things. One is on our website, I know nothing about websites, I know nothing about Facebook, but we have both of them. And for your grandkids or kids, Facebook is just like, Facebook and Twitter are the ways to communicate nowadays. So Rich Searles brought us into the 21st century, created a Facebook page, created a website specifically for the police department so that we can not only engage in our day-to-day communication with our neighborhood watch groups and our regional groups, but we can refer folks to the website for a variety of different things. One of the things I would encourage all of you to take a look at is the Neighborhood Watch Checklist book. And this is available online, and we also have them at the Urbana Police Department. But this book really gives you a lot of foundational stuff if you were thinking about creating your own neighborhood watch group. Now, the good thing that we do, and I don't want to steal Anthony's thunder, but the thing that we do that we haven't done a good job of in the past, Anthony was introduced as our first community police officer, and he worked like a dog. In fact, he worked 22 hours a day. He carried a pager, and he constantly tried to address all the needs of our community with that pager on his hip 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it was overwhelming. He did an incredible job, but as time went on, we started changing our philosophy a little bit, we as a police agency, and started buying into the concept that a community police officer isn't going to solve it. But if every police officer on this 55-man department said, I'm going to do my part to engage with the community, then we had 55 community police officers. So our philosophy today is, you call us and say, I'm interested in a neighborhood watch group. We find out where you live. One of the officers that's assigned to that fixed beat will then go with this pamphlet or information about it. We'll figure out when you want the meeting. We will sit down. We will meet with you. We will identify the problems together, plan some strategies together, and then that officer will act as the liaison between that neighborhood watch group and the rest of the city. And I neglected earlier to say, I said community development and the mayor and public works. The mayor's office was incredibly involved in the project when it first started with the whole neighborhood safety task force and other projects that got the people more engaged with the community. So we got a lot of support from her office as well. The other thing, in addition to this document, which has a lot of great basic information to start addressing the problem, we have a online website. It's called crimereports.com. Just type in crimereports.com and it will pull up this Champaign-Urbana community. And then you can drill down from crimereports.com in Champaign-Urbana to just the city of Urbana, to just the southeast part of Urbana, to just Silver Street, to just the 1300 block of Silver Street. You can literally drill, I used Silver Street, I shouldn't have. I meant Broadway. Look at, Teresa's cringing because she said, no, we fixed all those problems on Silver Street. Sorry about that. I don't mean Silver Street, any street in the city of Urbana, and what we can do is almost track real-time criminal activity. Every 8 hours, we automatically enter all of our crime reports into this program. It identifies all of the registered sex offenders. It identifies all the different categories of crimes that took place so that people in our neighborhood watch groups don't have to rely on, we really need that statistical information for our next meeting. They can actually retrieve it on their own. So that's something that's very, very helpful and it's useful. It's a relatively new program for us, but we absolutely love it because it gets the information out more quickly. Oftentimes what we find is when we have information that's available, it becomes very stagnant because the officer is gone for a period of time or the neighborhood watch representative is out of town for a period of time, so the two are never able to meet, and before long it's been 3 months before a meeting. We encourage folks to get together on a monthly basis, and we're more than willing to send the police officers to that location so that we can sit down and collaborate together. That's just one of the other areas that we've talked about, and I think overall, I'm getting close here, I know. I think overall, the concept, and although I've created some new programs, although I've tried to rejuvenate some things with respect to buy-in from the local the local police officers, our police officers within the Urbana Police Department, so many of them are so committed. When I said earlier, we're talking about 42,000 people in the city of Urbana with 55 police officers providing all those police services. So it's very tough. We are actually requiring them to do more with less manpower, and that's a difficult thing for us to do. But we also understand that we've got some incredibly difficult economic times throughout the country, so we're going to have to accept that and do the best we can. What I will tell you is this in closing. Certainly we will never be, I often hear people say, we'll never not be there for a 911 call. And that's true, we won't. Anytime somebody calls and said, I need your help, Champaign, the county, the University of Illinois Police, any one of our police officers, I assure you, will be there within a matter of minutes to help you. But beyond that, our goal, our mission of the Urbana Police is to enhance the quality of life in the city of Urbana. So we're going to do that cooperatively by working with you folks within the framework of the Constitution. And we're going to enforce the laws, preserve the peace, and reduce the fear of crime. And the only way that we can do that is by working together. So that's kind of the direction I have taken I have continued to take. Mike Bealey made tremendous strides in doing that. Eddie Adair before him had some really innovative ideas for that time. But the times are a-changing, and we need to keep changing with them. All righty? Thank you. I'm going to sit over there. You talk too loud.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to say I am very honored to be here. I'm very happy to be here with you today, and I'm very thankful that you give me the opportunity to come and share with you about some things we're doing at the Champaign Police Department. First of all, I thank Chief Connolly for giving excellent remarks and laying the foundation for what community policing is. It's not much different within the Champaign Police Department as far as the foundation of community policing under Chief Don Carter back in the early 90s. He really did a great job of building a foundation for our community policing. That's still somewhat the basis of the way the policing is done within the city. However, a lot of emphasis at times were more on special units and crime, or not necessarily crime, but drugs to some degree, where we lost touch with staying in contact with our residents. And that's what I'm looking to try to restore and bring back. There are a lot of officers that still go out and do those wonderful things, but at the same token, we want to change it and drill it down a little bit further so that we got all ranks inside the organization reaching out, interacting with citizens other than on service calls. So with that said, Champaign Police Department, we started looking at something called intelligent-led policing. And that's something we're starting to implement within our organization. I really do support it, and I'm learning a lot about it in my short time at the Champaign Police Department. Intelligent-led policing, well, before I start on that, I probably should tell you a little bit about the Champaign Police Department. Just like Pat explained, there's 55 officers in the city of Urbana. In Champaign, I'm a little bit more fortunate. My authorized strength is 119 officers for a population roughly 76,000 residents. I currently have 116 officers employed. I have 3 vacancies that we're looking to fill. I have 23 civilian staff under my command. Within the city of Champaign, we have 4 geographical districts. We've broken our city up into districts. And each district has a lieutenant who's directly responsible for the police service within that district, and they oversee it. We have a North District, a Northwest District, Southwest, and South District. And under the concept under the previous administration, lieutenants pretty much attended all the neighborhood watch meetings, neighborhood association meetings, and they work with neighborhood services to make sure police service has been provided. That's good, but I would like to see us drill it down to where we keep the lieutenants there, but also get the beat officers there, get the sergeants there, so that we get our officers who are actually providing the service to residents in tune with what's going on within those communities. With that said, as we work towards making that happen, that's where intelligent-led policing is going to come in. Intelligent-led policing, I'm just going to read to you exactly what it says. Policing model that focuses on the future, on a future-oriented and targeted approach to controlling crime. Data analysis and crime intelligence are used to guide proactive efforts to address specific criminal activity and solve problems. The purpose of our intelligent-led policing, basically what it does is take traditional policing and a lot of other types of policing and to try to integrate them in a way that we can actually deal with problems and get to problems and deal with them effectively in a short turnaround. What we use in intelligent-led policing is standard policing. We look at hotspots policing. Hotspots are things that may pop up where you may see trends that come up. We look at problem-oriented policing, community-involved policing, as well as using stats. And what intelligent-led policing is, we have a crime analyst within our police department who actually takes all the data as far as calls for service, takes all the information, and they put it into the system. We are in the process of implementing this system where our officers are actually drilling down and have access to this in their cars, and they can look at information as far as calls for service, what is occurring in the city, so that when we have two things that are occurring far as two things that come up far as, excuse me a second, as far as victims at the same location, two incidents where there may be multiple suspects, or we have two incidents where there's same MOs, mode operandum, where things are occurring, it spit out a flag for the officers and let them know, hey, there's a couple things going on in this area, in a geographic area, that may be related. And by using the intelligence from the computer, because a lot of times officers may not pick up on it. For example, in our district, we may have as many as 5 to 9 officers working in a particular district. One officer may go handle a call, and then another officer in that district may handle a call, and they may not talk with each other. They may think it's something that's innocuous, it's just something that's just occurred, and they may not communicate with each other, may take a report. For example, say we have a criminal damage where someone took a BB gun and shot out a window. Officer may show up, take a report on that, and go back in service and don't think more about it. And then 20 minutes later, he may be tied up with something else, and another officer get dispatched to a similar incident where a window got busted out, and may not realize there's a pattern going on. We use the computer to help us to figure out what the patterns are, or it may happen where it may happen on this shift one night and then happen 3, 4, or as many as 6 or 7 hours later on another shift. And a lot of times things like that will fall through the cracks. So we're using computers to help us to understand where things are happening at, but at the same token, we don't want to replace it where we don't have the opportunity to interact with citizens. And that's the biggest thing I'm stressing right now as we look at the computer and don't rely heavily upon technology, make sure we still keep the people interaction and we don't allow us to lose focus or lose track of what's going on in our community. The benefits of intelligent-led policing is to give us accurate, timely intelligence. It enhances proactive policing efforts. It rapidly puts employees in areas where problems are occurring. It creates realistic standard of flow. It's consistent with follow-up assessments, addresses incidents quickly, and everyone within the organization is required to work together to deal with issues. When you look at police work or police issues as they occur, you'll generally find that problems are complex and solutions are responded pretty much immediately, short-term or long-term, based on what the problems are. When you look at problems as far as immediate, these are generally isolated incidents, critical incidents where officers are going to respond there and they're going to take on the issues dealing with it with traditional policing, whereas short-term problems are things that are minor, ongoing to some degree, but it may take more than just the critical incident to respond to it. A short-term problem could be incidents such as bar fights, domestics, where or neighborhood disputes where it may be ongoing and maybe a problem that may take officers interacting with specific homeowners or businesses to work and deal with problems. For example, in the city of Champaign, we have a problem sometime in some of our larger apartment complexes where we have tenants who may be unruly and cause problems, or there may be problems with burglaries within the complex. And the officer will pick up on things like this and really partner with managers within these complexes to see what can we do to reduce the crime or even reduce the fear of crime within these areas. And those are short-term problems. And then you encounter some of the long-term problems we incur. And you may have seen some of you watched our city council here lately. We were talking about problems in Bristol Place. Bristol Park area neighborhood is the area that's bounded by Bradley on the south, Market Street on the west, the ICG railroad tracks on the east, all the way up to I-74. And that's an area that's been plagued with a lot of criminal activity over the years. And the city council just gave directions to city staff to look at redeveloping the entire area, where they're going to actually look at taking everything out in that whole geographic area described, stuff for the Family Dollar, and redevelopment because of all the problems that we've had in that neighborhood over decades. which is something as a long-term problem, and that's a problem that was addressed by multiple approaches with several problems within the city, from neighborhood services as well as the police department. At one point in time, that neighborhood had one-way streets and a traffic pattern plan that made it difficult to move through the neighborhood in order to try to alleviate some of the problems within it. But that is a long-term problem that came about will require long-term solutions that we take on. So when we're dealing with community policing, we look at it from 3 different aspects and take 3 different approaches in dealing with it. That is intelligent-led policing in a nutshell, and I tried to just keep my remarks to that just because I knew Chief Connolly will be speaking to community policing as a whole, and everything that he's said I would like to echo. So those are things that we're doing within the Champaign Police Department, or things that we're striving to do within the Champaign Police Department. But our biggest focus right now is taking it one step further and using intelligent-led policing, using technology to assist us and aid us as we do our traditional policing. With that said, I'll open it up for questions. I said I would be generous with questions so we can get to what you guys want to hear about in more detail.
We want you both to speak into the microphone and also to speak loudly so the audience can hear. So, you have questions? There you.
Thank you. This is directed toward Chief Connolly. My name is Belden Fields. We've met.
Absolutely.
And I work with the Public Eye newspaper. And we did a FOIA request to Urbana requesting complaints, all complaints filed against the Urbana police from January 1, 2010 to the present. And we received a packet of 31 complaints. And these complaints were of a nature of people saying they were bullied by the officers, that the officers falsified reports, the officers didn't tell the truth, rudeness, harassment. And one, dated 9/8/10, said that when they went to file a complaint, they were told that no matter whom they spoke to file it, they would be told that it would be verified that the officer behaved according to protocol. The difficulty is that not one of these complaints was accepted as valid. They were all denied. Now, I know there's one complaint here that was filed by a white person. I know who it is. All of the others, and you're not told in this what the race of the person is, but it's obvious from reading through what the person writes that these are African American people. So my question to you is this. It seems to me improbable that out of 31 people who filed the complaint, that no complaint was judged to have any validity to it. Would you re-examine these complaints that were filed from that date? Would you go over that again? And would you reassess the complaint process that you have in Urbana?
Okay, and the time frame you said for those 31 was
The time
2010, so the last 2.5 years?
Yes, January 1,
So for the last, let me
2010.
answer that. 2.5 years, over 20,000 calls for service per year, so let's just make it 100,000 calls. Out of those 100,000 calls for service, 31 people filed a complaint. Let me tell you how the complaint process works in the city of Urbana. You can get on that fancy new thing called a website and go right to the complaint process under the Civilian Police Review Board process, and you can extract a document where you can fill out a complaint and submit it electronically. You can submit it to the mayor's office, you can submit it to Todd Rent's office, or you can come to the police department and submit the complaint through the supervisor or directly to the chief of police. So of those 31 complaints, for the past 2.5 years, with over almost 100,000 calls for service, 80+ thousand calls for service, you said one of them was
White. A Caucasian
valid,
person.
or was-
Caucasian.
was white. Well, I don't have the statistical information to prove or disprove that, but I think you're assuming that since they're not providing you a raise. Is that correct?
Yes, from the reading of the text, the
All right.
text of the complaint here that the people themselves wrote.
So you file a complaint in any one of 5 different ways, and that information comes directly to the chief of police. And then we have, if any of you get on the website, we have a specific protocol for addressing citizen complaints. There are specific time requirements where Todd Rent, our human relations officer, oversees the complaint process. So that we have checks and balances in place so that immediately I send a letter to the person filing the complaint. Todd Rent then monitors it on a time constraint. We file that complaint, and then we have to provide progress reports periodically according to the Civilian Police Review Board policy. After the complaint is investigated, thoroughly investigated by a lieutenant within the police department, the findings come to me, and I make a decision based on the information that was contained within the complaint. I then send the person who filed the complaint a letter saying either it was found to be correct, the allegation was correct, and we have a problem within the police department and I'm going to address it, or based on the information that we collected, it was unfounded. In other words, I'm sorry, but the information that you shared with us can't be corroborated, or we have other independent witnesses that show that it's not accurate as far as what's being reported. And we have a series of other categories in which it could be placed. Then, attached to that is an appeal process. And on that appeal process, it says, if in any way you feel as though the chief of police's decision was inappropriate, you file this not to the police chief, but to Todd Rent, who is the Human Relations Commissioner, and Todd Rent will then get the Civilian Police Review Board, people that are selected by their mayor's office, to help us in reviewing that process. So they will file this appeal. Of those 31 complaints since 2010, one person has taken advantage of that, one person. So I guess in response to my question, or to your question, I think we have so many other things in the police department that we need to focus on moving forward. I think we have a check and balance system in place that I think works very well. And for us to now go back to those 31 complaints over the past 2.5 years with over 80,000 calls for service and over 7,000 police reports annually, I think we would be, instead of moving forward and looking for change and looking for creative and innovative ways to work together as a community, we would be going backwards and we would be wasting an enormous amount of time.
I can say the one person who went to the review board, his complaint is not here. It was not given.
Okay, I didn't fill the FOIA request though, sir.
I have a question, and I'd like everyone else to start thinking of questions, but I know from working with the city of Champaign, community policing, which involves a problem-solving approach of going to the neighborhoods and talking to people, takes a tremendous amount of time. Much more time than a response to a call kind of system. So how do you deal with the fact, I mean, is that your experience? And how do you see what kinds of things have you done to give that time that's necessary for actually working with community?
Well, I can tell you 2 things that Urbana does, and then I'll let Anthony address the Champaign side. 2 things the Urbana did, as a matter of fact, we did it together often last summer, was put uniforms on, not those silly ones that we were called firefighters with, but regular police uniforms, and we walked throughout the community. And I was amazed, especially UCAP, for those folks who don't know UCAP, that's kind of the northwest part of the city. So Bradley, Romine, Eureka, Tremont, that area. Sunday, warm Saturday, actually it was an evening, 6:30 or something throughout the week, I'm walking, and there's a gentleman that says, "What are you doing?" And I said, we're out walking in the community and introducing ourselves and seeing what we can do to better serve the people in the community. And the guy says, "You know, in 40 years of being here, I have never once seen that happen." Now, I apologize for that, and I told him, I assure you that other police chiefs I know have done it. It's just, you must not have been out fixing your lawnmower at that particular time. But I handed him a card, and I said, "If you ever need anything, feel free to give me a call." Never heard another thing from him. Then we had an event in our community, and I mean in our law enforcement community, probably 6 or 7 months later. And in the course of this event involving a police-citizen encounter, there was a mixed message that was being sent to the community, and that was that young people who are driving cars should run from the police. And the next day, I received a phone call from this guy. His name is James Winston. And he said, "Do you remember me?" And I, of course, if you ask me tomorrow, "Hi, Pat, do you remember me?" I'm going to say, "Absolutely, I remember you." And then I'll look to Anthony and say, "What's his name again?" So I did not remember him. And he said, "I met you last summer when I was fixing my lawnmower and you were out walking the community. And I am really bothered by the message that's being sent, and I want to do something about it. I want you and Julia Reitz, the Champaign County State's Attorney, and myself to sit down and create a message for the community that's going to send a positive message to the young people on how to interact with the police." Now that, folks, in my opinion, is true community policing at its best. So James Winston, myself, Julia Reitz, and Dan Bailey, the guy who does Cops Corner, Jason actually produces it for us, sat down, and James Winston posed a series of questions to us about the right way to interact with the police during a traffic stop and the wrong way. Then he went on to drive a car. Rich Searles put on a uniform, traffic stop. Jason was on the floorboard of the car and shot it, and it's been aired on UPTV for the last 4 months probably, showing people in our community the right way and the wrong way to interact with police. And it was an absolutely, in my opinion, the true message of community policing. Now, I know that was a long, drawn-out explanation, but it does take time. It takes time for us at 8 o'clock at night when we start our job at 7 in the morning, but it's important enough for us that every night we will be out walking our neighborhoods or working with folks and groups like you and SUNA and WUNA and UCAP so that we can continue to do it. But it can't just be us. It can't just be Anthony Cobb when he was this community police officer. It has to be every police officer in the community. And I believe in that process. Fortunately, the mayor does too. So on occasion, we get overtime so that we can put other people to address the 911 calls for service and focus on the community groups. Go. Keep it short, okay?
No, in addition to what Pat says, which is very important for command staff to get out there, we do try to set times in both departments where we do direct patrol with our beat officer, where they actually take time, they get out of their car and they spill time in targeted areas dealing with problems, dealing with issues, or just interact with citizens. Sometimes we tell guys, do some direct patrol in this particular neighborhood and just get out and just knock on doors, introduce yourself to citizens, and see if there's any concerns or problems that they may be having that are not on our radar. And both departments do a lot of that. That's something that's very instrumental in getting information for us and helping us interact with citizens. That's short enough?
Yep, good. Good answer.
Hi.
Loud, please.
Oh, loud. Okay. I was wondering if, with each of your departments, do you have a number of members? I believe it's called CIT training programs. How many do you have? And that is the program for those who don't know of how police officers should interact with people that probably are mentally ill.
CIT is crisis intervention training. There are several CIT officers in the county throughout. On the Urbana Police Department, if I remember correctly, I think we're sitting around,
Quit saying we.
He's sitting around about 10. On the Champaign
13 now for us.
13, yeah. On the Champaign Police Department, I honestly can't tell you how many. I don't know that number. I do know we're probably at more than 13. We send a lot of officers to that training. A lot of officers are engaged. All our hostage negotiation officers are engaged in that training and been through it as well as a lot of beat officers. Great training, great resource. I'm actually a CIT officer and enjoyed being it, yes.
The crisis intervention team officers are designed to deal with special needs folks. So if those are mentally ill, those are bipolar, those that are having mental disabilities. As a matter of fact, we had a meeting this morning, that's where we talked about our uniform thing, with Melanie Jackson, who runs See You at Home. And she is actually going to provide some training ongoing training for our police officers on how to deal with the mentally ill. The other thing that I don't know Champaign has, but I'm sure they're going to get it, if they don't, is we have a form actually at the Urbana Police Department where any member of our community can come in if they have a special needs person, an autistic child, parent with Alzheimer's or dementia. You can actually register them at the front desk of the police department. We enter them into the computer, and then we have a special alert so that if, for instance, we were attending or going to a call for service and there was a special need, a son or daughter in the family is paranoid or schizophrenic and is concerned about you police officers, it forewarns those officers that we may be going into a combative situation, and it automatically reduces the anxiety level both on the part of the family that's hesitant to call the police and for the officers that are attending. And it's a great program where we register those folks. We have a photograph, so if an autistic child walks away from home, it's immediately dispatched to all of the mobile data computers, the computers in our car, so that we can see a picture of the elderly person who walked away or something like that. Our CIT officers actually manage that project. So CIT is a really good project.
Okay, more questions?
Hi, my name is Keith Thomas. I'm a pastor. I'm actually one of the guys that introduced him as the fire chief.
Thank you, Pastor.
But and I represent the faith-based corner of everything, especially where my church is located at. And you mentioned that being one of the hot spots. And my question and concern is, where are we going to be partnering with you as we do this community-based policing? Where do you see the faith-based community partnering with you specifically in making this thing happen and being a big success in our areas?
From my perspective, I think it's going to be huge for the departments to work with the faith-based community, work with your parishioners, work with everyone in your congregation to get information out. I think there's a lot of education that need to go both ways, from the officer's perspective as well as from the community perspective. There's a lot of things that are not known about police department or situations that may occur. For example, if you have a contact with a police officer, how should you perform in those contacts? Whether it be a traffic stop, whether it be a voluntary stop in the community, or be what we call a Terry stop, where there's some type of suspicion because I may have got a report of a burglary just happened in a particular area, and the subject happening to be a black male wearing a brown suit with a tan tie. If that's the description, is it me or is it you? Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so when it comes out, the officer stops it. I did it, but they're stopping you. And when you talk about it, sometimes people could get defensive. I say, why are you picking on me? And so when things come out, it says the educational aspect of it. So faith-based can be very huge and help us deal with issues when emotion is not involved.
We have, Reverend, a youth-based actually this Saturday, 4 different churches are joining their I guess resources is the easiest way to put it, along with the city of Urbana, a number of different organizations to work with the youth in that particular neighborhood. And it's not Silver Street. It's the Hunter, Learman area. And this youth summit is going to hopefully collaborate with 4 different churches on trying to identify special needs and programs that we can start focusing on. They want to do a gun collection. They've got a lot of really creative ideas. So we've been in dialogue, we, meaning the city of Urbana, but that includes police, the mayor's office, community development. So the ball is starting to roll, and that's exactly what we needed to continue to do. And quite honestly, a lot of the reason why I think we are a little bit lucky in that area is because of my visits to the various churches. I think a lot of the congregations felt a little more comfortable saying maybe we can get better involved. So far, at least we're moving in the right direction.
The league has a is this?
That's not amplified.
Oh, okay. The league has a long history of interest in the problems of incarceration and in reducing incarceration. Of course, one of the ways that is done is with probation, amplified probation, and so forth. Do your departments interact with the local probation officers? If so, how does that work?
Okay, let me just Why don't you restate the question for the people that might not have been able to hear Louise?
Okay.
Anybody else have a question?
Short of the question was, how does our department interact with probation? Probation is used to reduce incarceration. What do we do? How do we aid them? Probation is a vital resource to both our agencies. Probation have a lot of information that can be helpful when it comes to keeping track of individuals in our community. Probation, their function and their role is to deal with individuals who may have a community-based sentence, and as they're dealing with, pretty much is after the fact. As far as with us, when it comes to our interaction with them, if there's problems, if we're aware of the terms of probation, this and that, we send information to probation, make them aware of, and do what we can to assist them. If we come in contact with the individual, we have a problem with them. But a lot of time, when guys are on probation, they report directly with their probation officer one-on-one. We can access some of the records and see what's going on in some issues. But like I said, our interaction is direct. We have healthy dialogue with them. But as far as when they're on probation themselves, officers really don't supervise them one-on-one, but they said we provide information to help out.
I'll tell you one of the other incredible things about the probation department. They have drug court as an example. Anthony and I go to every graduation of drug court. Judge Ford puts it on. Mike Carey is the probation officer. It's an incredible thing. Once again, you'll hear, if we were here for 5 hours, you would hear it a zillion times. We can't do this by yourself. It's got to be a community effort. CIT, as a matter of fact, the mental health court, Judge Ford is looking into the concept of the mental health court, which I am 100% in support of. We have a ton of returning veterans from Afghanistan and Iraq, and we both work very closely with the Veterans Administration out of Danville. In fact, Lori DeYoung is the doctor who handles that project, where she's trying to identify returning veterans who are now abusing alcohol or drugs, have been involved in the criminal justice system, and we can then get them the treatment that they deserve from serving our country, and now we put them in a position where you're home, you're on your own. So those kinds of projects are the things that both Anthony and I attend regularly and fully support. So the probation system is just one of the prongs of that tire, of that wheel that's keeping this whole system together. God bless you.
This is an easy question.
Good, finally, one easy question.
How many females in the group?
Ooh. And you know what? I knew that was coming, so it was right in that book right there. But I'm going to say 7, and now I'm going to go look.
Okay. From my perspective, on our department, I think we're right around that same number, between 5 and 7, right there for us females.
Oh, look at how nervous I am because I'm wrong. I'll tell you this, as I tap dance to try to find all the statistical stuff. The female officers that work on our police department are incredible. In fact, Sylvia Morgan, the new assistant chief, worked her way through look at this. 55 sworn, 7 females. I'm right on top of this. It only took 11 minutes to find it.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say 7 is nice, but it could be better. But having been involved in the hiring process, I know that it's very difficult to you need to increase the pool and get women who are interested in
absolutely.
policing.
I'm going to repeat that because Trish, what she said was incredibly important. 7 is good, a lot more is better. Yes. So I wholeheartedly support that. So if we as a community can get the number of police officers in the city of Urbana increased to 65 or 70, we could talk to the mayor, and I would have a hiring project that would include 10 females.
But then you get them in a domestic situation and they have their teeth knocked out, and they don't want to do that anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And that was a joke, to clarify for the television audience, Mayor.
My question, you're clearly working with a bunch of groups. When you're talking about your one neighborhood down near Learman, I'm thinking you're probably involved with the Park District and the School District. And I'm wondering, with both of you, there's Park District, School District, what other groups that we're not thinking of, and how do you work with these folks?
Yeah, I didn't do it proper justice. UCAP, every quarter that we meet, the Urbana Park District is literally seated at the table with us. We engage so many different organizations that I just didn't name them all, and each of them are continuing to grow. Each time we see, from the input that you guys give us and our own needs, each time we see a niche where we need to fill something else or do a better job of trying to address it, we invite that group to join the table as well. And certainly the Park District, I can tell you that the faith-based groups are getting far more involved in the city of Urbana, and that's a good thing. Our businesses in Urbana are really, really getting involved. I'm going to just say Philo Road. Is that okay? Philo Road, we have a meeting. Bob Fitzgerald puts that together, and really we have people from County Market and all the different businesses down in the Philo Road district who just say, we may not be having a problem right now, but we still want to be a part of the solution. So they engage and provide materials to us and other things. So it's really, I'm really excited. I sound passionate about this, but I am, because it's not just us. It's all of those folks that are recognizing that they're taking a role in trying to make our place a better place to live.
And it's not much different in the city of Champaign. Neighborhood services, every community meeting that I've been to since I've been at the city of Champaign, they've been there and partner with you already said School District, Park District, Access Initiative. Both myself and Pat was at Mental Health Awareness, Child Mental Health Awareness Week is going on with Access Initiative. They're a huge partner in our community and things that they do and what they're providing, resources to our community. They actually have an open house coming up here. Actually got an event going on tonight with young people where they're showcasing them out of 88 Broadway. And got an event coming up here on open house on Saturday with community elements out on Park Street in downtown Champaign. Park District, you already said, schools. Like local neighborhoods, we spend a lot of time working with neighborhood watch groups and neighborhoods throughout the city. Those all are partners with us, and it's wonderful to have the opportunity to work with them all. Yeah.
I have a question. The Police Training Institute at the University of Illinois has been teaching and training officers for almost 60 years now, and I know that both departments have trained your officers there. There's a move to close it, and I wondered if you'd like to comment on what impact that would have on your departments.
I can tell you that it's going to have a tremendous impact from the Urbana side, and the reason for that is the folks at the Police Training Institute have been incredible. Unlike a lot of the other police training throughout the state, they start with day one as they go through their 12 weeks of training, and they start with, this is a radio, this is how you turn it on, this is how you talk into it. And as they continue to integrate new tasks throughout that 12-week period, those scenarios build into all of their training needs. And I'm using a simplified version. But now you go to a domestic situation, before you engage in dealing with the people, you have to tell the dispatcher, you're going to be out at this location. So that type of scenario-based training, that integrated practical training, is something that is unique to the Police Training Institute. In addition to that, there are advanced courses, all of our firearms, tactical, defensive tactics courses, all of those take place here in our community. And as a result of that, if they use our firing range as an example, they may give us 2 slots to allow our instructors to attend free of cost, where now it's going to cost $5,000 to send those 2 people because that type of training is moved someplace else. So the quality of the training and the fact that our training is going to be reduced drastically just because financially we can't afford it, those are 2 issues that are just heartbreaking to me.
Yeah. Exactly the same for the city of Champaign. In addition to that, a lot of our staff is at some of the adjunct faculty at PTI. And with that, I mean, they're providing instruction. I mean, they have to be on the cutting edge of staying current on best practices. Guess what? As they're learning the information to teach there, that's information I'm getting for free at my agency. That's going to help me with my training dollars. Now, if PTI leaves and they close it, now I got to send people away. That's going to cost me money. So my training dollar now is going to shrink. And it's going to cost me more money because I got to pay lodging, I got to pay meals, I got to pay a lot of different things. So it's going to have a huge impact upon us, yes.
It's just a question about the youth and police. It just occurred to me. I've seen Mr. Winston's video because that came across our neighborhood listserv. But from being a teacher at the high school, you know, we've had policemen at Urbana High and Urbana Junior High, and I know they have them at the junior high and the senior highs in Champaign. Are there any programs there that have the police address groups of students about these issues of how to interact? Because I know in our school it was much more kind of in the hall, just showing that policemen were regular folk and that sort of thing. But it seems like we're getting to the point where information has to be gotten out to counteract information that may be saying, I mean, if what I read in the paper is correct, like you run, you don't hang around when a policeman. So, I mean, I know you get kids in a group and they can be using their phones or the internet or whatever, but it just seems like you've got a captive audience in a school situation. I just wondered if there's any programs that are using that audience to address this.
Yes, both departments have school resource officers that do a lot of programming within the school as best they possibly can. Recognize the primary function of the school is to educate our young people, and they try to pack their day through with a lot of information since No Child Left Behind, and they're really held accountable. There's a lot that goes on within the school, but I know I've seen classes. I'm a former school resource officer, so coming through Urbana, I got to do the presentation on the law and you, presentations on open forums, presentation as far as going into driver's ed classes where they talk to them about your responsibility as far as driving is a privilege, not a right, and help guys or help young people to understand this. I know in the Champaign department, I see a lot of programming when it comes to our Fitness 5.0, when it comes to bullying. We have a bullying expert who just took part in a panel that got some recognition at the state level as he presented to a bunch of educators about ways to deal with it and help educate young people about the pitfalls of bullying. You see a lot of different things going on in both agencies when it comes to educating. Unfortunately, you only can do so much in the school day. We try to do a lot of that outside the school day, whether going to the Boys and Girls Club or to some of the neighborhood groups and work on it. But like I said, we're constantly going to be in a cycle where we're always going to educate young people because our young people, they grow up, but more young people keep coming. Recognize we are in a very fluid community, most especially with the University of Illinois, and we recycle students every year, and we have to re-educate. So we're always going to constantly be in a re-educating cycle because of our community diversity.
I'll tell you one other thing. Jonathan Westfield from the Champaign Police Department, incredible guy. I saw him. We work together quite often, but he's got, not in the school system, Teresa, but he's got a Police 101 course that he's putting out for all the youth in the community. This summer he's starting, we have a Citizen Police Academy. In fact, it's going on as we speak every Thursday evening. Absolutely phenomenal tool to better educate the public about what the police do day to day. Jonathan's putting one together for the youth, invited Urbana folks to come. Preston Williams, the superintendent of Urbana schools, called and said, "Are you familiar with this?" I'm all over it. In fact, my mentee signed up to go yesterday. So outside of school, there are a lot of other projects that are available. Within the school system, we only have his school resource officers, no offense to our UPTV, but Champaign runs a school resource program on the Champaign channel, and watch it sometime. It's incredible. You get goosebumps because you see how passionate the SROs, the school resource officers, about working with the kids in that community. Yes. So those kind of things are the things, Tim McNaught is our school resource officer. God bless him. He's running constantly trying to put out fires. But he does go to driver's ed and try to squeeze a little bit of that stuff in. But I agree with you. I think, remember the days of DARE? Those are great concepts. They're long gone, though. I know we said 8:30, Trish. I don't know. We want to keep going? We'll stay till 11, folks.
To change the subject slightly, I know that a few years ago that the police chiefs and the fire chiefs, and I don't know who else, would meet on a regular basis to discuss emergency response, whether it was man or nature-made. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, we are. As a matter of fact, her question was, are the police departments and fire departments still meeting routinely to prepare for and address traumatic events, weather-related events, that kind of stuff? And we have actually several different. Our new EMA director, John Carlson, is incredible with trying to organize all of us. The police chiefs meet routinely. In fact, we are meeting weekly, Anthony, myself, and the University of Illinois chief. And within the community, we meet monthly within the Champaign County. So Rantoul, the Champaign County Sheriff, the state's police, the FBI, all of us meet on a monthly basis. And then we also interact from a emergency management area with police, fire, EMS, all of the other, American Red Cross, all of the other folks, and we meet with them quarterly. So the good news is we're pretty well prepared in the event we have to respond to an event. Yep.
He answered it.
I'd like to thank both chiefs for coming. It was certainly very informative.